maybe some of them are watching. You are watching Dr. Phil's MerritTV. I'm Joe Gum, not a thousandaire.
I thought you were going to say, congratulations, it's Friday.
Yes, that too.
That too,
yeah,
yes.
Just a bonus if you're a billionaire.
So glad you're kicking off your weekend with us. It's a busy morning. I'm Fanchen Stinger. World leaders firing back this morning on President Trump's historic tariff plan. On the other hand, the president says he has the countries right where he wants them. Well, here's where we are at this hour. China announcing this morning it will impose a 34% tariff on imports of all U.S. products. That will begin April 10th. But they are not alone.
And today I'm announcing that the Government of Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach, with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement.
Well, let's take a live look right now at the big board. Looking at the Dow right now, down 1,100 points, but the S&P 500, NASDAQ, all major indexes are down as we speak on this Friday. Yesterday, Trump's tariff plan sent shockwaves through Wall Street. It started the bloodbath. The Dow closing sharply in the red, down 4% or 1,600 points. That's a downturn of nearly $3 trillion. It was the worst sell-off since the COVID pandemic. Again, the president, however, is steadfast on these tariffs.
Every country's called us. That's the beauty of what we do. We put ourselves in the driver's seat. If we would have asked some of these countries, most of these countries, to do us a favor, they would have said no. Now they'll do anything for us.
All right, let's bring in our political panel. We're going to dive into this. Melissa Armo is a finance expert and CEO and founder of the stock Swoosh. Also with us this morning is Dan Turrentine, Democratic strategist and co-host of Morning Meeting on TV. To you both, thank you so much for being with us. We just looked at the markets. Of course, Wall Street closing with its biggest drop since 2020. People are starting to wonder, I kind of want to flush this out with both of you from both sides of the aisle. For instance, we are hearing from Ethan Lane, National Cattlemen's Beef Association. He's pointing to the U.S. beef farmer getting the raw end of the deal for decades. You know, we take beef in from other countries, they tariff us, but he says when we go to sell them our beef, which typically is much more superior, better quality, better tasting, we are getting on our end a lot of regulations, making it almost impossible for us to go to other countries. He mentions Australia. They don't take any U.S. beef. Vietnam, a 30% tariff on U.S. beef. Thailand, a 50% tariff on U.S. beef. So this is my question. A lot of people are starting to ask, why is it that there is this pushback from big money and from Wall Street when the president is taking a stand, trying to fight for the working class in America, the farmers, the auto workers, bringing more manufacturing in? I'm going to go to you first on that, Melissa.
Well, the market's selling off as we speak. Not only did it drop yesterday, it gapped down today quite a bit, and we're selling off right now. And there's many reasons the market is selling off. It's not just the fear of tariffs and what that will do to the economy. It's really the impact now that it could have on interest rates going forward in 2025, because everyone thought coming into the beginning of the year that the Fed was going to lower rates 3 times this year. At this point now, if, again, costs are higher, if we're still in an inflationary environment, then the Fed may not want to drop rates at all this year. So there's fears about that going on. But as far as what's happening in the market moves up, the market moves down. If you know how to short, you can short the market if you're an active trader. The people that are worried right now are people that are in retirement age who are looking at their 401ks and it's dropping. If you're someone that's under the age of, I'd say even 55, the market will probably at some point bounce back. Remember, we had a huge lift, a big rally after the election in 2024. So not everything lasts forever. Just like the rallies don't last forever, the sellouts don't last forever either. I mean, as far as the beef industry goes, all farmers have been affected, by the tariffs. And also the auto industry has been affected as well. So there's lots of industries that have really been affected by this. And it's kind of been unfair when you look about it, when you say, you know what, the United States is the largest consumer. We like to consume, we like to buy things, we like to spend money. And so this overall is going to help long term, I think, the economy. It's going to strengthen the US dollar and it's going to help us long term, but there may be a short term pain. When I say short term, it could last for weeks, it could last for months, it could last the rest of the year. I don't know at this point.
Yeah, Dan, Trump was asked about this yesterday, about Wall Street. He didn't care. because he's not fighting for Wall Street. They can handle themselves. Like Melissa just said, it goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways. So figure that out. It will go up again. But Trump says things are playing out just like he expected. Again, the long term for the largest group in the U.S., the middle class. He uses tariffs successfully in his first administration. We all know that. It's documented. Yesterday, he said just about every country is calling him. He said that on Air Force One. He's potentially open to negotiating these tariffs. He said that to reporters. But Dan, his team at the White House is saying no, he's steadfast on these. So which is it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, look, he did have some success in his first term using tariffs, which is why Joe Biden did not undo most of the tariffs that were in place on China. I think politically, there's no denying that the manufacturing class and to some extent the agricultural community have been huge losers in the free trade movement of the last 40 years. And so Trump is fighting for them. It's key to his political success. He's been clear, unambiguous, and really full throttle. The challenge is 60, 70% of this country has benefited mightily from free trade. Companies big and small, new and old, sector after sector. I mean, we've really had the best economy of the industrialized world the last 40 years. So I think what Wall Street is watching is how can Trump fix the problems that impact the manufacturing and to some extent the agriculture community without disrupting all of the progress and all of the strength in these other sectors. And they're pretty nervous for these other sectors.
Yeah, a lot of those other sectors watching very closely. Hopefully the private money investment that's coming in will help to offset some of that. At least the president is saying that he's hoping that's what does happen. Let's switch gears a little bit. Some major shakeups in the Trump administration. NSA Director General Timothy Ho, he was also the commander of U.S. Cyber Command, and Civilian Deputy Director Wendy Noble, both out. They were fired. And those firings came after the president reportedly met with Laura Loomer in the Oval Office. A lot of the media talking about this, making a big deal about this. They say she is a journalist, she's an activist. Some label her as far right. She once claimed 9/11 was an inside job. Now, some people don't like that she was seen on Air Force One. And now they're saying she's in the Oval Office. They're raising red flags about that. She says her own post that she brought information to the president that led to the firings. The president, on the other hand, is saying he listened to her like he listens to everyone, yet he downplayed her role in that decision and alluded to the fact that the firings were based primarily on disloyalty. Dan, your take on that?
This is one that makes me shake my head. Look, the Trump team vetted these people when they took over. I mean, these are not low-level people where you could argue, look, as we go further down the chain of command, we're unearthing new facts. So one, what does it say about the initial vetting? Two, these are people literally the heads of our national security and the head of our cyber security. I think cyber is one of the most serious threats that the country faces because of the way our economy and so many defense systems work now. And so I'm curious what new information they unearthed. The headline is that they were, quote, not fully MAGA. I would hope we're hiring the best and the brightest, as Pete Hegseth said earlier, and not kind of, somebody was in a room with somebody else 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago that said something unpleasant. I mean, the vice president currently and Elon Musk had things not nice to say about Trump years ago. So this is one where I think we need more information.
Yeah, Melissa, I'm going to get your take on this. The Trump administration has come out and said, based on their experience the last go round, they understand now how it works, who's who. What is your take on this firing?
Again, I don't know the information that was presented to the president, but I do trust the president's decision. And he obviously decided that these people had to go. I think part of the issue with Washington, D.C. is some of these people are just entrenched in D.C. So, I have no issue with bringing in some new blood, some new people. Some of these people have been around. I think the gentleman was there for over 30 years. What's wrong with getting some new people in there? Again, Trump did learn by some mistakes that happened with some people that were disloyal to him in the last administration. So I think it's great that he's taking advice from other people, whether you want to call it a journalist, an investigative reporter. I don't even think it matters. If there was information that he made a decision himself to fire these people, look to have probably more people fired in the future. I don't think this is going to be the last of it. Again, he's been in office less than 6 months.
Yeah, and as we heard, people say, hey, we want to get the smartest people in there. How many times did Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, in hearings say that China had already hacked into their systems and they were already starting something posing broad and unrelenting threats during the Biden administration? So maybe this is a move that will help us with figuring out cybercrime, especially when it comes to China. All right, so finally, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg said he is looking at whether probable cause exists to hold Trump and his administration officials in contempt for violating his orders to stop the use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport gang members. Is Judge Boasberg merely grasping at straws here, seeing as the White House has appealed the underlying case to the Supreme Court? We'll start with you, Melissa, and then Dan.
I don't know if he's grasping at straws or it's grandstanding, but I think this is going to come to an head. He's not the only judge that's been doing things like this, has been trying to interfere with some of the administration's actions. And as someone that lives in New York City, where the gangs have been roaming rampant, I mean, they still haven't gotten a lot of people out of here that they need to get out of here. I'm still waiting for them to come to New York and go full throttle. Because, I mean, there's certain areas in New York City and Manhattan where I just don't go anymore because there's just so much violence. And I'm not talking like all the way up, way up. I'm talking about like Midtown, where, I used to go, where there was offices and buildings, and now many of them are vacant, because people are not working from the office from COVID. And now there's all these hotels that have been housing all these migrants. So it was appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is going to make the final decision. But, I don't know what is wrong, why this judge decided to do this. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's just grandstanding.
All right, Dan, you're going to a Mets game or a Giants game with your family. There could be gang members, criminals trying to figure out how to, do something with you guys. Why the pushback, though, from the judge on deporting dangerous criminal gang members? That just doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Help us make sense of that.
Well, look, I think there's two different things. As a fellow New York resident, as well, with 4 kids who likes to go to New York sporting events, there is no doubt that dealing with illegal immigration is a real issue. And the public is clearly on the side of the administration, that they ran on it. I think where there's concern is, do you trust everything that the government says, whether it's Donald Trump now or Joe Biden before, or, Bill Clinton or Barack Obama? We have a legal system for a reason, to have due process. Mistakes are occasionally made, which the administration even admitted the other day in the case of the Maryland man who was accidentally deported, which they admitted in a court filing. So, look, judges and justices have been frustrating presidents since the founding of the republic. And I think, as Melissa said, this may end up in the Supreme Court. They may have a different opinion. But I think everyone needs to just respect that we have this system in place for a reason, to make sure there are not mistakes, and where there are, that the administration is held accountable. And that's the American way.
Yeah, and I love the Democratic side. Dan, thank you for that. And Melissa, when they bring this up, we need to go back to the student loan process, when the Supreme Court during the Biden administration said stop doing this, and they just kept changing the title of what it was. That's why they could get by with paying off so many of those loans or forgiving them. Melissa, Armo, Dan Turrentine, always a pleasure having you guys on. We appreciate your context, texts, and insight always. Thank you.
Thank you both.